Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the RENNSPORT community events. And today, as promised yesterday, I'm not alone here today. With me in the booth again after 2 weeks is Tim Ireland. Welcome, welcome.
Hello, Lino. Yeah, it's good to be back after a couple of weeks holiday. Hello everyone on Twitch. How are you guys doing? I hope you're looking forward to some Road Atlanta craziness.
Well, craziness it sure will be. We will have GT3s and BMW M2s on track for 45 minutes. We've already seen some interesting action in the warm-up or practice phase, including some threading the needle type stuff. So yeah, I mean, M2, very known car, GT3's more known car or cars. What do you expect for today here in this Road Atlanta race?
I'm expecting anything and everything. I don't think we've ever had a Road Atlanta race, specifically Road Atlanta, that has turned out to be normal. So yeah, I have no idea what to expect. I'm ready for anything.
Well, first guy out on a flying lap here is Dominic Ladler in the Porsche, back in the DreamHack Porsche. Going through the S's, downhill, getting as close to the cups as possible. We don't really want to take too much of them. We've seen cars on two wheels through these sections, sometimes even on their roofs, in case of Rowan Den Hood in the TCR one time. Don't really want to do that in qualifying and especially not in the race.
No, hopefully he won't do it today. He seems pretty stable from what I've been watching him going around on his qualifying lap.
Yeah, I mean, Road Atlanta is a track we had many interesting races on, be it actionable, questionable, or anything else you kind of screw up with at the end. So, multi-class in the mix could be very interesting. GT3 typically very competitive around this track.
Yeah, it's a fairly tight track. The balance seems pretty good here between the different cars, and there's not a lot of kind of good solid overtaking opportunities. Words. So it's going to be fairly tricky for them, I think, to navigate the M2s, who are going to be on a pretty fixed one-line system. I think pushing any of the M2s off their racing line is not going to be a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's narrow. It is very one groove in many turns, so you don't really have much choice. But it also really shows who is patient and who is not. We currently see Rowan Den Hood on pole, Dominic Ladler in second, and Mark Heworth in the BMW back in third. Could be a bit of a dark horse as well in this race. The only BMW not partaking in the BMW M2 Cup, currently led by Enrico Bräuninger. But yeah, the BMW M2 race yesterday on the Nordschleife, while we unfortunately couldn't cast it, really has had an interesting outcome. Alizar winning over Dominic Ladler in the end, and we will have a showdown. They are divided by 1 point in the RNL standings for the final race in 2 weeks. So,
which always makes for an exciting final. So nice one, and Alizar here taking the momentum into the last round as well, which will be good for him.
Yeah, and of course GT3s, they meet on even terms, I'd say. They are both very good in these cars. Alizar could have his first championship, while Dominic Ladler could defend his Nordschleife crown. But what we also see this race is that we have more BST drivers than ever, because Johannes Blüm is also back. We've seen him at Road Atlanta actually a long time ago. Don't know if you remember, but in the Road Atlanta 200-mile event, with the Audi not turning on his headlights, it was Johannes Blüm coming second in the Porsche 963.
Okay. I knew his name rung a bell, but I couldn't remember where from, I've got to admit.
He went under a bit for quite some time, but he's now back and he founded BST together with Enrico Bräuninger. So the two team founders in this race together with Mark Hewitt, making them
And
Michael G as well.
Michael G in the M2s. So we have a good showing from BST here today. Let's hope they can work together on track, especially when it comes to class-based overtakes.
Another team that has stacked up a bit is NGSRT, which is led by Radoslav Pironkovic, who just put his Porsche into 5th in the standings. But Piotr Zadajbel, of course, a known member in this team. But we also got P. Kosluk as a new member in that team. So yeah, our known teams are expanding a bit in recent days. And not too far off the pace as well. Going in front of Piotr Zadajbel now. Only 200 behind Michael G. Enrico Bräuninger with a very strong lap of 128.9. Radoslav Pironkovic also back in the Iron Dames Porsche, which we of course know him in. Struggles a bit in Sector 2 as it seems. Dominic Lala
he lost a fair chunk of time there.
Dominic Lala got a bit closer to run than Hood in the other Porsche. And one thing I've mentioned in practice to you, but that is very surprising, even though he has called the sessions crit already. Dennis Kurzer in the Mercedes.
Yeah, it's good to see some of our drivers mixing it up a bit, trying a few other cars. It's always fun to see people in new machinery, even if it confuses us for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it is a change. Definitely something to get used to, but whether it will bring him some good luck or not, we will see later on. Fenton in the Mercedes as well, in that beautiful purple beast livery. Collect a bit of damage on the front left. It won't necessarily help him in qualifying, but we've seen in the Florida Beach 500 that he is seemingly pretty good on race pace. So this race a bit shorter, but maybe he's fancying his chances in the race. And Dominic Lala also within the 117s now. Very short lap around here. I'm surprised that Julian Chicot hasn't set a lap time yet. And both Dominic Lala and Rondon Hood going very wide out of T5. Radoslav Pironkovic also bested Dennis Kurzer for P4. So we have Rondon Hood and Dominic Lala on the front row as it seems right now. There's still a minute left in this qualifying session, so at least a chance for some drivers to finish their lap time. One of them being Mark Hewitt. But losing the rear end. Exiting turn 7. And Enrico Bräuninger still on pole in the BMW M2 Cup. Will be very interesting going in towards turn 1 with this mix of cars. Of course, for the M2s it will be crucial to not have a GT3 facing the wrong way around. And we've seen that before. It can happen very easily if you go right in turn 1. To have some bigger incidents. But we also seen in RCL that you can go there without any incidents, so definitely a very crucial part to this race here. And that is qualifying done and dusted. Any surprises from your side?
I don't think so, really. The guys at the top you'd expect to see there. We've got a fairly good little group between Mark Hirath and Radoslav Pionkovic a bit further down.
Yeah, indeed. I think BST front row lockout in the M2 Cup is very strong. Very strong showing. But apart from that, yeah, the typical candidates. It seems like we unfortunately lost Dennis Kurzer due to technical difficulties. We'll try to find out more during the race, but for now, we are just about to start this race. We see Julian Chicot at the far end of the grid, so he didn't set a lap time. And we go racing in the RENNSPORT community event here at Road Atlanta. Ronan Hood immediately defending from Dominik Ladler. Radoslav Pionkovic up into third, now side by side with Markiewicz, who seems to get the better exit out of turn 1. In the BMW M2s, it is Enrico Bräuninger who can claim the lead exiting turn 1. But a good start here for Ronan Hood. And it seems like it went through pretty cleanly throughout the grid. And Julian Chicot already up into 6th position.
Yeah, the M2 start was pretty clean as well. Enrico seemed to hold on to his pole position pretty well. And everyone seems to be lapping fairly safely now.
Oh, Fenton getting very loose, exiting turn 7, and Julian Chicot immediately using that to get past. Both using the flashers towards the Porsche of Radoslav Pionkovic, but Julian Chicot immediately getting out of slipstream and alongside the Iron Dames Porsche, trying to make a move into turn 10. Some easy pickings here for the start. The 3 Audis of Blüm, Nürnberger and Moas also having a pretty decent start. Running 8th, 9th and 10th at the moment, but pretty close together. And in the M2 class, the new driver for NGSRT, Picos Luke against Michael G, one of the veterans. Fighting for P2. Side by side into the S's. Kosluk braking a bit later. There has been contact, but able to keep the position for now. And Michael G, who lost the position at the start of the race, now back up into 3rd in class with Piotr Zdaibel, another NGSRT driver, just behind.
Yeah, hopefully Zdaibel's closed right up there with the little bit of a mistake going on from Michael G, so he'll be looking to try and capitalize on that as much as he can. But Michael G already closing the gap up back to Kozluk.
Not really shaken by that contact. Out front though, it's Ronan Hood leading by 1.6 seconds. He really likes this track. Really enjoys driving around it and always seems to be very competitive around here. And having a 1.6 second gap to Dominik Ladler is definitely something that you can only do if you are competitive.
Yeah, for sure. We've seen Ladler kind of take it a bit easier at the start of races a few times recently, so you never know, his pace might start to pick up a little bit. Sorry. But yeah, it's definitely a great start by Ron de Hood there, getting the pressure off him immediately and giving him a bit of clear space. He got pole position, so he's obviously pretty happy with lapping around here pretty quickly.
And running into a bit of a problem, spun exiting turn 5. Car seems to be okay though. That is Ben Nürnberger on the inside now. He's trying to keep him behind him. Sending it down the inside. Oh, and both going for a spin. Victor Moas also. And then now Enrico Bräuninger has to find his way through. And that is a very difficult position to be in.
Yeah, it's going to make it harder for the GT3s who are going to have to get past some of the M2s now. They're going to have a little bit of traffic.
Looked like a bit of a ambitious dive, to say the least, but not much harm done. Race continues and we still have 40 minutes on the clock, so plenty of time to make up that lost ground. Oh, but Michael G spinning on the curb on the inside of turn 10. Now to get a spinner on that is costing him a lot of time. Morales coming in to the pits.
Yeah, he seems to be going in to fix his car, but he's also got a drive-through to be served. So I don't know whether that was a bit of a mistake from him there.
Michael G also seems to be in the pits. Maki with meanwhile running in third in the G3 class. Greatly misbraking for turn 10 though. Cutting across the grass. You don't really want to do that too often. Not only for penalty's sake, but also simply for the chance of damaging your car.
Yeah, you don't want to be getting aero damage even at a short track like Road Atlanta here. It still costs you a little bit down the straights, and it can make battling for positions pretty tricky.
Not even speaking about defending from a very hard charging Julian Chicot. Using all the curbs he can find.
Rowan de Herd already lapping some of the M2s.
Big damage there to one of the M2s. Can't quite see who it is.
I think it's Alvaro Ruiz, but I'm not sure.
Of course, this will also be very important towards Julian Chicot and Mark Hewitt. Julian Chicot diving down the inside, cutting across the grass to not hit the BMW. Letting him back through, of course, but that could have ended very badly. Chose to avoid the contact. But turn 10 proving to be a very tricky corner this race. And also a bit of a fight for P6, Johannes Blum against Fenton. And Fenton aggressively on the flasher. Oh, and Julian Chicot got past Marquez in the S's. That is not your typical overtaking. Oh, and that is Rowan den Hurt with big damage to the car. He's lost the rear ring. What did happen to Rowan den Hurt?
You want happening.
And of course, losing that downforce makes the car pretty undrivable. But what has happened to Rowan den Hurt? That means Dominic Lala is our race leader now. Johannes Blum losing it in the S's. Fenton goes through. But let's take a look at the BMW M2 class. Enrico Boining are still leading, now by about 8 seconds. Over Kosluk and Zediable, who are running second and third in class. Bit of a gap between the two of them.
Just lost it by himself going through the S's and slid back end first into the barrier. It caused obviously a lot of damage to his car and lost him a couple of places. And having a bit of difficulty controlling that beast without a rear wing.
That is such an easy mistake to make in Road Atlanta. The car gets super loose. Especially through the bumpy parts, now Dominic Lale having to get past the two MGS RT drivers. Seems like Enrico Boining is lapping a bit quicker than the two.
Rowan's just dropped off the air jacks and he's coming out of the pits now. He's way back in 5th place.
actually Fenton is not too far away from him. It's only 4 seconds separating the two of them. Behind him it's Jonas Blum and Ben Nürnberger. And going for the move around the outside into the S's. The S's is not a part where you usually see overtaking opportunities, but apparently people decided to just disagree with that statement. Bit of contact as well, but very brave move there by Ben Nürnberger.
Yeah, the drivers seem insistent on just making up the road rules every time at Road Atlanta as to what is a good line and what is available to them. They just like proving us wrong.
Mark also going around the outside of one of the BMW M2s. But he has not given up on P2 yet. He's trying to hang on to Julian Chico in the Audi. Who, may I remind you, started last in the GT3 class. And, of course, as you may notice, it is getting a bit darker. We are at sunset. And it will not get to midnight, but it will get darker. And then, of course, what we had in previous races, especially the Florida Beach 500. Driving in the light is one thing, driving in the dark is another one, especially with that multi-class. Trying to read the opponent's or the other class's direction will become very crucial.
Yeah, if you're in an M2, you better get used to having headlights flashing in your rearview mirror, because that's going to be happening pretty much all of the time from now on, and it's only going to get brighter.
Well, so far it also... Oh, as Piotr Zdaib is going very right in turn 1, but can keep it out of the barriers. It was very close though, but it seems to be happening a lot anyway, because as we've seen with most of the GT3s, they tend to use the flasher a lot. So does Ronenhood right now, just to prove the point. Flashing one of the BMWs off the road. Dominic Lala currently having a bit of clean air in front of him. Of course we will have more Road Atlanta action to come with GT3s next week, right?
Yes. I love some Road Atlanta. Great for me. So it's always a pleasure to see more Road Atlanta on the calendar. That's the word.
Jonas Blum coming into the pits. But yeah, next week RCL at this track, so a very similar race, just without the BMW M2s, but even more GT3s. 45 minutes sprint. The Nürburgring race was very interesting. Had some very close fighting for the lead and actually throughout the pack. So I think Road Atlanta will be even more actionable if the past has any indications for that. Also, Kosluk lost second in class to Piotr Zdaibel. He's now 3 seconds behind his teammate.
His car looks pretty clean, so it doesn't look like he's had too much of a bump or whatever he did.
Maybe just doing the same mistake Piotr Zdaibel did, running right in turn 1. Ronenhood seems to be fine with his repairs. So it doesn't really seem to have many long-term consequences at the moment.
Johannes Blum just about to get dropped off the air. Jackson joined back in the race. He's a bit behind the leaders, but he can still make some places up, that's for sure. He was lapping quite a bit quicker than Ben Nuremberger, so should be able to close up the gap, but it will take him a while.
Yeah, and of course he has the BMW M2s to get around as well.
That is true.
One of them right in front. And that should be Piotr Zdajby, indeed it is.
Yeah, not only does he have to get past the BMW M2s, but also they are on track for position right now, as most of them have done more laps than him. So they don't really have to get out of the way if they don't want to.
Oh, but Ronden Hood is definitely one to get through. Of course, multi-class racing always a bit different with blue flags, but he's 29 seconds behind Radoslav Piwonkiewicz, who's running solidly in 4th. With 30 minutes left on the clock, he has the chance to catch up to the Polish man.
Yeah, he was about 34 seconds behind before, so he has made about 5 seconds up on Radoslav Piwonkiewicz. His fastest lap is about 3 seconds faster than Radoslav's. So he's making some good inroads into that time gap. I'm sure with a bit of consistency, which we know Rowan can do, then he may well be staring down Radoslav's tailpipe before long.
But, of course, you have to keep it on track. Always rule number 1 if you want to be in contention of a race. Also seems like Pico's look is a bit quicker again than Piotr Zdajby. So the gap was above 3 seconds. Now it's come down to 2.8, 2.7, fluctuating a bit. But currently, Enrico Bräuninger leading that class.
He's got a good gap at the front of the race. He's going to be pretty happy with that. It's going to give him a bit of space. Let him maybe give a bit more space to the GT3s as they come past us. He doesn't need to let them through so quickly, which always puts the pressure off you a little bit.
Coming down the hill, start yet another lap. One of the BMW M2 is actually coming into the pits again. I think that maybe Jose Nunes. Indeed it is. Seems like he got himself a drive-through for speeding in the pit lane. But up front, Julian Checot seems to be slightly quicker than Dominik Ladler.
They're doing practically the same lap times. There's hundredths of a second in it right now. And Dominik Ladler's fastest lap is half a second quicker than Julian Checot, so he's definitely got the pace in him. But yeah, the gap does seem to be closing ever so slightly.
Of course, traffic here and there, it always changes up the grand picture, but yeah, in general it seems like Julian Checot is slightly closing in. Of course, sometimes you will see Ladler gaining a few tenths, sometimes Checot. I think that gap was way above 10 seconds at one time though.
Dennis Kurtzer on the Discord channel saying that he had an internet outage, which quit him from the game.
Yeah, of course, very unfortunate. I, as a German, can understand that pain. It's something you grow up with in this country, to a certain extent. Let's hope that he will remain the only case here today. Last lap round though, Dominik Ladler back into the 118s.
Yeah, doing a 118.9. The only other person doing 118.9 actually is Rowan de Hood. right now on track. Who's brought it down to 21 seconds for Radoslav Pionkovic. Radoslav's last lap actually was a 120, though he's just done a 122.
It's still quite some stuff to play for Ruan and Erd. Interestingly enough, the only FDRT driver here today. Usually we see quite a lot more of them.
Yeah, we've seen a few less FDRT drivers recently, as the rise of BST and NGS seems to continue.
Gap between Kosluk and Piotr Zadaba has grown again to 3.7 seconds. We also seen that Kosluk was a bit off the road in between turn 6 and 7, just running a bit wide, which can very easily happen in the BMW M2. It is, as I tried to explain yesterday, it is sluggish. I still think sluggish isn't the correct word for it, but getting it to turn requires, well, a lot of fiddling with the brakes and not overestimating the car.
Yeah, I think for the people out there who mainly drive GT3s, suddenly getting dropped into an M2, it can be a bit of a learning experience, that's for sure. It's difficult with it on screen next to GT3s not to call it slow, but it's far from a slow car. I think it's just relative to the GT3s. It's not as nimble, not as agile. I know they both mean the same thing.
But it sounds better.
But, yeah.
But yeah, the BMW M2, therefore being a very, very good racing car. And it actually feels good to drive. The car gives you a lot of feedback, an excellent learner car. But if you are used to more downforce, if you're used to GT3 especially, and you will try to drive it like a GT3, you will end up in a wall. So you have to really approach it with a bit of a different mindset. So I would suggest giving it a try if you haven't. You get one for free by signing up to RENNSPORT, of course. So, yeah.
It's probably not a helpful thing to say, but it's like sometimes you kind of feel like you've got to manhandle it round a corner, and kind of like drag it round by sheer force of will more than turn it. But that's probably me being terrible. I bet once you get better with it, it becomes far more finesse than I give it credit for.
Yeah, it kind of has 3 modes depending on what traction control you drive. The car, of course, being based on a typical street car, so the M2, don't really have much to play with, as Radoslav Pionkovic seems to be off the track in Sector 2, and also one of the BMWs, that's Kosluk, also losing it. Very unfortunate here for the NGSRT team. Seems like Radoslav Pionkovic didn't hit the wall, so he's able to continue run and hurt with that up into P4. Almost looked like there was oil down in the track. So we see a bit of a fight. It's not for position there. It's Piotr Zadaba trying to put a lap on one of the other BMWs and Rondon Hood going around the outside.
There's a few of the M2s driving around with one headlight right now, so they've got a fair bit reduced visibility, and maybe the clue to watch out when you only see one rear light as a GT3 catching up to them.
And I also retract my statement from before. Radoslav Pionkovic has definitely hit the wall because his rear right is totally bent. That car crabbing towards the pit lane. I think having damage on the rear suspension is one of the worst things you can have in
Yeah,
racing.
for sure. And Kosluk's just coming into the pits as well, and he's got a 55 seconds of repairs to do.
Meanwhile, it is getting pretty dark out there. All the cars having their low or high beams on. But still, Dominic Ladler out there leading by 10 seconds over Julian Chicot. Now for Ronan Hood, his mission is basically to get back onto the podium. Mark Heworth 14.5 seconds in front. But Mark Heworth himself isn't too far off the pace.
No, Mark's been doing some pretty okay laps as he's been going around, so he's not going to make it easy for Road to Hood, that's for sure.
We also have the two Audis of Ben Nürnberger and Johannes Blüm fighting for P9 and 10 overall. That is 6th and 7th in class. Could become 5th and 6th depending on how long Radoslav Pironkiewicz pit stops end up being. Going for the dive into turn 10 and making an easy pass on his Audi colleague.
Yeah, Nürnberger didn't contest that too much there. Didn't try too hard to fight it off.
Bit of a flashing, yeah, of course. Still have 20 minutes left in this race. But yeah, more of a survival race again, so keeping it on track and out of trouble. But of course a very surprising mistake by Ronan Hood early on.
Perhaps a bit of a race fun fact, but we have a couple of the M2s ahead of some GT3s in overall classification right now.
Meanwhile, Enrico Boiniger, the leading in M2, has also lost it in the S's. The question is, did he pick up a lot of damage? He was rolling backwards into the wall.
His car looks pretty fine. He's still pretty good on suspension and aero. He's taken a little bit of damage, but nothing massive, I don't think.
Radoslav Pironkiewicz also back out on track. But the S is catching out a lot of drivers, even though we've seen many drivers attempting to pass there. Petter also nearly losing it now. So maybe people are underestimating the curbs at night, trying to turn in too early?
Yeah, it's possibly losing their braking and turning points that they've memorized from day racing. Just little changes like that, especially for the S's where you kind of rely on outside information because they all tend to be fairly blind apexes.
And Michael
if
G,
you
the next
lose
one.
your reference information.
Michael G, the next one to be caught out by it. Didn't lose position on track, just to the two Audi GT3s coming through. Meanwhile, also some support for BST in the chat. It's looking good for a class victory, but way too early to judge that. For Julian Chicot, he lost about 2 to 3 seconds to Dominic Ladler now in the last 5 to 10 minutes. Dominic Ladler also not afraid to use the flasher to his advantage. Has to wait for the M2 though. That is Enrico Bräuninger. Getting past exiting turn 10 and down through turn 11. Michael GX here also went into the pits after his hit into the wall. Now the question is, Kozluk, where is he? He's currently in the S's. Depending on the time of Michael G, I think he will get closer, but he shouldn't get past the German.
It was a very short repair for him, actually. He's just about to get dropped off the jacks again. And he didn't opt to do anything else. He was just doing repairs. So he seemed to have played that pretty wisely.
Maybe just some bent rear axle as well. So the problem with flying off the S's is, of course, you're at very high speed. Walls are not too far away. And yeah, hitting the walls there, as my Hewitt is coming together with one of the BMWs. That's Piotr Zadai just came out of the pits. Maybe a bit ambitious there on the outside. But yeah, if you hit the wall at that part of the track, it really can cause a lot of damage. Especially if you hit the wall sideways.
Yeah, there are kind of places where you can make contact with things like walls and it not be too bad. Like if you can get a nice flat contact with a wall, it sometimes like shares the damage out amongst the length of your car, and it doesn't affect any one thing too much, and you can get away with it. But especially with the corner contacts with the wall here, it seems to happen fairly regularly when you come off the track. That it's all kind of concentrated in one area.
Vladislav Pironkovic came back into the pit lane for repairs, and seems like he also just repairing the car.
Yeah.
But it should still be enough to stay in front of Ruanas Bloom, because he's still a lap down. Of course, he having quite a bigger shunt and longer repair time. But again, it is a still very chaotic race here at Road Atlanta.
Road Atlanta, he always delivers. It's just a good race. It might be chaos, but it's always fun.
But also some of our new drivers here, like Ben Nürnberger, having some pretty good race. Of course, there were some issues earlier on, but he's still out there, he's still racing. Which, of course, not everybody in this race can say for himself. Not always their own fault, but yeah, sometimes can just happen. Julian Chico sending it down the inside to put a lap on his Audi colleague. But I think it's a very respectable thing to still be within the race.
Yeah, for sure. It's always good to see people hanging out and kind of committing to doing the entire thing.
Dominic Lala still very aggressive, of course, those curbs in the S's. BMW in front of him missing his headlights. Doesn't really make it easier to drive in the night. But Julian Chico at times really having the pace to go with and even catch up to Dominic Lala. So the gap hasn't grown in quite a while between the two of them. But
now the last lap around,
yeah.
Shakur was about a second faster than Dominic Ladler. We've said many times before that it all comes down to traffic. But yeah, it's fairly close between those two.
Makes you wonder what could have happened if Shakur could get a proper lap in qualifying. Of course, starting down in last in class, he made his way up pretty quickly at the start, but he had to fight through quite some cars, especially Mark Hewitt and I think Fenton were the ones he couldn't get by so easily. That will have lost him quite some time.
Rowan de Hoed on his chase towards Mark Hewitt. He's had a bad couple of last laps, to be honest. His last lap was a 1:23, and he's just had another little trip onto the grass. So I don't think this lap's going to be any better.
Mark Hewitt actually flashing his own teammate, Enrico Bräuninger. Now in front of him could either be Johannes Blüm or Ben Nürnberger.
That's Ben Nürnberger.
There was a bit of contact, and it seems like it knocked out the front right headlight from properly working.
Yeah, he squeezed through a tiny gap there. So yeah, it looks like he's had a bit of a headlight issue.
He's trying to cycle through them, but
yeah, I think he's slowly realizing that he's broke it.
Julian Shakur also super aggressive across the curbing. 2 tires into the air, and we've talked about it in qualifying. And we've seen people flying off at that very part of the track. Is that a risk you really want to take this late into the race with less than 10 minutes to go? Maybe. He has a 37-second gap to Marquis with the car in front of him. That is Radoslav Piwonkiewicz, who is 2 laps down after his pit stops.
Yes, he's 3 laps down.
Letting the Audi by. Without much of a fight, of course. One of, I think, the fairest drivers we have in all of RENNSPORT.
Yeah, Radoslav Piwonkiewicz is on the same lap as Enrico Bräuninger right now.
Still ahead on track. Enrico Bräuninger just now in T6. But yeah, Enrico, he had one spin, but apart from that, a pretty mistake-free race. Even with all the chaos that surrounded him.
Yeah, I think it's a relative term. He's had a pretty clean race. He got away pretty cleanly at the beginning and managed to capitalize on the gap and just kind of chill and take it easy and stay out of the way of the GT3s.
He had a good start and never really looked back, so I think he can be very happy with that. Of course, somebody who really likes the BMW M2, as he's also running his own M2 league. Dominic Lala also knocked out one of his headlights.
It's a good day if you're a headlight salesman.
Somebody selling Porsche spare parts. Apart from that slight scratch and the, of course, malfunctioning headlight, it seems to be a pretty clean car.
Yeah, it's not a bad one. Yeah, of course, that's the BMW 992, which spare parts for that might be starting to become a bit rarer with the announcement of the Evo.
Well, it depends on how you look at it. You could argue if you damage your normal 992 GT3R, you can just buy the Evo parts, slap them on there. Of course, the Evo packages are upgrades, so you take the existing chassis and you put on the new parts, essentially. Not sure about the Evo 2 Audi, but I think it still works on the same architecture as the 2017 Audi R8.
Yeah, and it does kind of change from manufacturer to manufacturer about how, and also package to package, about how aggressive it is and how much of a difference it makes and how compatible they are. But it's good to see the Porsche Evo coming to RENNSPORT later on. I'm sure it'll be a popular choice. The 992 definitely has.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, the difference visually may not be striking, but the new louvers at the rear arch, they do look pretty cool, I gotta say. But it's always nice to have a new car and some new and more variety on the grid. And I think Evo models are something that are a bit underestimated at times in the sim racing world, because of course they don't change necessarily a lot, but they do add to the variety, and it will have, or Evo models have slightly different characteristics. So if a car doesn't work for you because of a certain characteristic, the Evo car could fix this very thing, and the 911 Evo being made to be easier to drive by basically making the front of the car a bit weaker. Believe it or not, but the current 992 Porsche is basically limited to the rear axle, because they made the front just so good in terms of traction that the 911 Evo can really help with battling that issue. So if you find yourself struggling with the 992, the 992 Evo may be different and may work for you just better. And it seems like Ron Den Hood is in the pits again. He should come out in front of Radoslav Ivankovic.
He's just saying in chat that he didn't have his headlights working, so he's gone into the pits to get them fixed.
They do seem to work now. For the last few laps, didn't lose position. But do you see what I see in the GT3 class?
I do see what you see. We only have 4 manufacturers here today, but they are gracing the top 4.
Yeah, usually, of course, the 5th manufacturer, Aston Martin, represented by Enrico Brueninger, but he's driving the BMW M2 class. But not much left to go in this race. 2 laps for Dominik Ladler. And the gap currently to Julian Checo, 14 seconds. So yeah, the two haven't been far apart in terms of pace, but of course the fact that Dominik Ladler started on the front row and Julian Checo started on the last row really made the big difference here. Had the slight coming together for one of the BMWs who was missing pretty much all of his lights. Nunes was in for the pits. That was Michael G we were seeing. Pretty unlucky race for him. He's still 4th in class, but I'm sure he will be a bit disappointed with that, seeing how he qualified in P2.
Yeah, it's never good to when you your race position is lower than your qualifying. You always feel like you could have done a lot better.
Piotr Zadai, though, he will probably be pretty happy with P2. Because look, in his first race for NGSRT, also still on course for a podium. But it will be 2 privateers on the top 2 steps of the podium in GT3. I think I could be close whether Dominic Lalla has to drive another lap or not. And he will also have the power to decide, because the gap of 14 seconds to Julian Chicot would be enough to allow for it.
He's just coming up to the last chicane, or just past it. So I think he's managed to time it just right so he doesn't have to do...
He doesn't have to do another lap. He is across the finish line, and Dominic Lalla wins the community event here tonight, with Julian Chicot in second, with one of the best comeback drives I think we've seen here at this track, alongside Dominic Lalla's comeback drive in the RCL. Mark Hewitt third in the GT3 class. But it will be Enrico Bräuninger. Start to finish, I think, pretty much a clean sweep for him in the BMW M2 class.
Yeah, I think he led into turn 1 and never let go of it from there.
Winning the BMW M2 Cup class, coming home in 4th. There's Mark Hewitt. Piotr Zadar already crossed the finish line in 2nd. The last of the podium finishers for the BMW M2 class. Because look, as said, his debut with NGS RT, he can be pretty pleased with that.
Yeah, for sure. It was a difficult race and a difficult field to be in. So I think anyone who finished today at all really is thank you very much for that. And yeah, I think you should be pretty happy with yourself.
Indeed. And if you want to have more Road Atlanta action, of course, next week, RCL, Season 7, Round 2, at this very track, 45 minutes with GT3s. And the week after that, we will have the season finale in the RENNSPORT Nordschleife League, 1 point between the 2 championship leaders, Ali Zaya and Dominic Ladler. And of course, then it will be time for the next RC. What that will be, you will see in just a second. So, before we do that, it's time for us to say goodbye. I'm pretty happy with today's race. You said it yourself already. So, I wish you a great evening. Until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.